the most enduring image to emerge from the 1930s in America, I bet you that two in particular would rise to the top. In fact, we might even need a runoff to pick between them. And interestingly, if not tellingly, both come from California. All right, Matt, we're gonna have to do this. I'll do this, and then you do that. This will either be manually virtual or virtually manual, but I'm gonna do this, and you're gonna, there we go. All right. So the first image is from 1936. This is Dorothea Lange's migrant mother, of course, referred to, I think, in one of the questions before. Her real name was Florence Thompson, and in the words of Roy Stryker, the head of the Resettlement Administration's photography project, of which Lange was part, Thompson displayed all the suffering of mankind in her, but all the perseverance, too. The second indelible image from the era, as Brian just spoke to so eloquently, is Tom Joad, protagonist from The Grapes of Wrath. John Steinbeck's novel was the best-selling book in the country the year it was published, 1939, and the following year, when the book remained one of the 10 bestsellers in the country, Tom Joad would become further and forever seared into the public's consciousness thanks to Henry Fonda's portrayal on the big screen. The funny part is, and I think this puts something of a twist on the notion that Brian brought up about the way that fact and fiction can blur sometimes. The funny part is that Lange would later take some heat for having embellished a good part of the migrant mother story. As it turns out, Florence Thompson wasn't actually living in a squalid pea pickers camp near the town of Nipomo, as Lange had claimed. Her car had simply conked out there, nor was Thompson so desperate that she was forced to sell the tires on the car just to feed her kids, as Lange's field notes indicated. The truth was, Thompson had been an active member of the United Cannery Agricultural Packing and Allied Workers Union, organizing meetings and negotiating wages in Kern County around Bakersfield. She was a very strong woman. She was a leader, her youngest daughter would later recall. I think that's one of the reasons she resented the photo, because it didn't show her in that light. At the same time, while Lange was being lambasted for fictionalizing aspects of what was supposed to be a documentary photograph, Steinbeck was attacked for precisely the opposite reason. His epic piece of fiction was picked apart as if it were documentary history. Lauren Schuler, the former editor of Country Gentleman magazine, went so far as to put together a 19-page analysis of The Grapes of Wrath, scrutinizing the book page by page and sentence by sentence. For instance, where Steinbeck wrote of men working for 15 cents an hour, Schuler was happy to report that the lowest wage in Kern County, that was actually 20 cents. In some of the bigger ranches, they were even paying 30. It wasn't just Steinbeck's antagonists who treated The Grapes of Wrath as if it were fact. Pundits of all ideological stripes referenced the Joads as if they really were among the 400,000 souls who during the hungry years of the 30s made the trek from the parched states of the Great Plains and the Midwest into California. What's being done about the Joads, the New Republic asked. Meet the Joad family, blared another headline. The Joads on strike, screamed a third. Men began to wear a hat commonly referred to as the Joad cap. And then, as we just heard, there was Woody Guthrie's contribution to all this. His composition, Tom Joad, recorded in 1940 as part of his Dust Bowl ballads. Guthrie first met Steinbeck, who was 10 years his senior, in Los Angeles in the summer of 1939, a few months after The Grapes of Wrath came out. As Ed Cray recounts in his Guthrie biography, Ramblin' Man, they were introduced by their mutual friend, the actor and social activist Will Geer. Guthrie was impressed in particular with the way that Steinbeck was, as he put it, trying to write history while it's happening. Guthrie would go on, as we've heard several references to already today, to lend his support to the John Steinbeck Committee to Aid Agricultural Organization, a group whose explicit aim was to help farm workers in California build a strong union. And we've heard about this famous gig, the Grapes of Wrath Evening, where Woody played at New York's Forest Theater in March 1940, along with Lead Belly and Pete Seeger. And we've heard about how this performance, the ties to Alan Lomax, some credit this was starting the modern folk music movement. What I love about that evening is a scene where when Woody got up there to sing, he scratched his head with his guitar pick and mumbled something about the rapes of graft before he started singing. The Grapes of Wrath had clearly captivated Guthrie. Steinbeck's book, he said, shows the damn bankers, men that broke us, dust that choked us, and it comes right out in plain English and says what to do about it. Steinbeck, for his part, was equally taken with Guthrie. After that initial meeting in LA, he arranged for Guthrie to serve as an uncredited musical advisor on the film production of Grapes of Wrath. The two traveled some together. Later, Steinbeck wrote this: "Woody is just Woody. Thousands of people do not know he has any other name. He's just a voice and a guitar. He sings the songs of a people, and I suspect that he is, in a way, that people. Harsh voice and nasal, his guitar hanging like a tire iron on a rust rib. There's nothing sweet about Woody, and there's nothing sweet about the songs he sings, but there is something more important for those who will listen. There is the will of the people to endure and fight against oppression. I think we call this the American spirit." The American spirit. How delicious that Steinbeck lauded Guthrie for his ability to capture the American spirit. We'd be hard-pressed to find two figures during the 30s who were viewed, in many eyes at least, as being more un-American than were Guthrie and Steinbeck. Indeed, to really understand this tumultuous decade, in my mind, you need to understand this basic ideological divide. This struggle that pitted far left against far right, that pitted those who counted Steinbeck and Guthrie as heroes for giving a voice to the voiceless and desperately trying to keep America from drifting towards some horrible strain of fascism, against those who saw them as nothing but a couple of dirty Reds. The late 1930s was a wild time, particularly in California. Colbert Olson, a protege of longtime socialist Upton Sinclair, who himself had almost won the governorship of California in 1934, had just been elected the state's first Democratic governor of the 20th century, ushered into office in no small part because of the migrant vote. Fulfilling a